While most football managers were sitting in suits at an awards ceremony, collecting trophies and shaking hands, Luis Enrique was at home, laptop open, footage running, Arsenal on the screen. That is where Paris Saint-Germain's manager chose to spend his Monday evening, not celebrating being nominated for League One Manager of the Season, not enjoying the moment, studying the club he is about to face in the Champions League final on May 30th. And at the same time, inside Arsenal's own world, David Raya was being named Premier League Player of the Match Week, a goalkeeper winning a Player of the Week award in a title race with 2 matches remaining. That does not happen in a normal season. That happens when the pressure is at its absolute maximum and one man keeps standing between his team and disaster. 2 stories, one night, and both of them telling you exactly the same thing. Arsenal are right in the middle of something enormous. The title is not confirmed. The Champions League final has not been played. The transfer window decisions have not been made. Everything is live. Everything is in motion. And the next 14 days could define this football club for a generation. This is where we are. Let us break it all down. David Raya makes Premier League history. Here is what was confirmed today. David Raya has become the first goalkeeper this season to win the Premier League Player of the Match Week award, taking home the honour for Match Week 36. The Spaniard delivered another massive performance during Arsenal's title run-in, and the recognition is now official. Now, here is my analysis on this. Think about what it means when a goalkeeper wins a Player of the Week award. It does not happen often. When a goalkeeper is being singled out as the best performer in an entire match week across the whole Premier League, one of 2 things is happening. Either the match was so tight and so difficult that the goalkeeper had to be extraordinary to keep his team in the game, or the goalkeeper made saves of such high quality that even in a comfortable result, his contribution stood out above everyone else on the pitch. In Arsenal's case right now, as they chase their first league title in 22 years, David Raya is not just a goalkeeper, he is a pressure absorber. He is the man who keeps Arsenal in games when the pressure becomes intense. Big saves, big moments, big mentality. That is not just a slogan. That is a pattern that has been showing itself repeatedly during this title run-in. Raya making history as a goalkeeper with this award tells you something very important about the kind of season Arsenal are having and the level of pressure they are managing week after week. Luis Enrique skips awards to study Arsenal. Here is exactly what was said. Paris Saint-Germain manager Luis Enrique was nominated for the League One Manager of the Season award at the UNFP Awards ceremony. He did not attend. When asked about his absence, he said, and I quote, "I never attend these kinds of events. I would rather stay at home and study Arsenal." That is the confirmed statement. Now, here is my take on this. Luis Enrique did not have to say that. He could have given a generic answer about being busy or focusing on training. Instead, he chose to send a very deliberate message directly to Arsenal Football Club and indirectly to everyone watching. He is telling Mikel Arteta that the preparation is already deep and serious. He is telling Arsenal's players that nothing about this final is being taken lightly on the Paris Saint-Germain side. But here is what I find most interesting as an analyst. The fact that Enrique said it publicly is itself a psychological tactic. He wants Arsenal to know they are being studied. He wants that knowledge to sit in their minds. Some managers would keep that preparation private. Enrique chose to announce it. That tells you a great deal about the mental game being played even before a single ball is kicked in Munich on May 30th. Before we continue, if this kind of deep daily Arsenal breakdown is exactly what you are looking for, please hit that subscribe button right now. Every day on this channel, we give you the full picture, not just the headlines. Subscribe, turn on notifications and come back every single day because the stories are only getting bigger from here. Gabriel Martinelli linked with Real Madrid. Here is what is being reported. According to Spanish outlet El Nacional, Gabriel Martinelli has emerged as a surprise transfer target for Real Madrid. The Brazilian winger continues to attract interest from La Liga giants amid ongoing speculation about his future at the Emirates Stadium. Now, my analysis on this one, the source here is El Nacional, which is a Spanish publication, and the language used is that Martinelli has emerged as a target. That means this is at the rumour stage. There is no confirmed bid, no confirmed interest from Real Madrid officially, and no indication that Arsenal are willing to sell. It is important as analysts to be disciplined here. A player attracting speculation is very different from a player leaving. What we can say with confidence is that Martinelli's profile, a young Brazilian winger with pace, technical ability and goals, is exactly the type of player that elite clubs across Europe monitor. The transfer speculation around his future at the Emirates is real, but until we see something more concrete, This remains a story to watch rather than a story to react to. Arsenal monitoring Matthias Saul at AS Roma. The confirmed information here is this. Arsenal are closely monitoring the situation of Matthias Saul at AS Roma and are evaluating whether to advance on signing him. Roma may demand around 40 million euros to negotiate the player. The source cited is caught offside. Here is my analysis. 40 million euros for a player of Saul's profile is a figure that would be considered reasonable in today's market for a young, technically strong attacker. The fact that Arsenal are described as monitoring and evaluating tells us this is early-stage interest. It is not a completed deal, it is not an advanced negotiation, but it is a name that is clearly on the radar at the Emirates. What makes this interesting is the timing. Arsenal are in the middle of a title race and a Champions League final preparation, yet the recruitment work behind the scenes continues. That level of planning and forward thinking is a sign of a club that is being run with serious long-term ambition. Saul is a rumour at this stage, but a credible one worth following. Oliver Glasner confirms no favours in title race. Crystal Palace manager Oliver Glasner was asked about his impact on the Premier League title race. His response was direct. He said, and I quote, "I checked my pay slips. I did not get any money from Arsenal or City." He then confirmed that Crystal Palace will not be doing anyone any favours. My analysis on this? On the surface, this looks like a humorous quote, and the delivery certainly had an element of wit to it, but the substance behind it is significant for Arsenal supporters. Crystal Palace face Manchester City in a crucial fixture during this run-in. The fact that Glasner is publicly confirming they will compete fully without any leaning toward either side is the correct and expected professional response. But it also means that Arsenal cannot rely on City dropping points against Palace as a given. Every team in the run-in is fighting for their own results, their own league positions, their own pride. Arsenal must take care of their own business. The Glasner quote is actually a reminder that the only thing Arsenal can control is their own performances. Arsenal keen on Morten Hjulmand from Sporting CP. Here is the confirmed information. Arsenal remain keen on Sporting CP midfielder Morten Hjulmand and have been in recent contact with the club. The Danish international has an €80 million release clause, but Sporting have signalled they are open to negotiations starting around the €60 million mark, with a summer exit now described as a real possibility. The source is Transfer Feed. My analysis. The gap between 80 million and 60 million euros is significant, and the fact that Sporting are willing to negotiate below the release clause is an important detail. It tells you that the club may be prepared to cash in on Hjulmand this summer rather than risk losing him for the clause next year. For Arsenal, getting a player of this calibre for closer to 60 million euros rather than 80 would represent strong business. Hjulmand is a Denmark international playing in a system under Ruben Amorim's legacy at Sporting that demands high pressing, positional discipline and technical quality in midfield. Those are exactly the attributes that fit what Arteta demands from his midfielders. This is still a rumour with no completed deal, but the contact is confirmed and the price signals suggest both sides may be moving toward an agreement. Paul Merson sends warning to the Premier League. Here is exactly what Paul Merson said. He stated, "What is coming next season will shake football. Arsenal are building something special while other clubs are living off history and excuses." He also said the Premier League will not be ready for this Arsenal team. And further, some fans still talk about history. Arsenal are trying to become the biggest club in the world right now. My analysis. Paul Merson is someone who knows Arsenal from the inside. He played for this club during a significant era. So when he speaks about the direction the club is heading, it carries a particular weight. What he is describing is a cultural shift. He's pointing to a club that is no longer looking backwards at its past glory, but is focused entirely on building something for the future. His comments are bold, but they are not without basis when you look at the evidence. A Champions League final, a Premier League title race that is still alive, a young squad that is developing rapidly, a manager in Mikel Arteta who appears to have a very clear long-term vision. The trajectory Merson is describing is real. Whether the Premier League will be ready for it next season is a conversation for another day. But the foundation he is pointing to is very much visible right now. Ben White, future talks with Arteta amid Everton interest. The confirmed details are as follows. Ben White is set to hold talks with Mikel Arteta about his Arsenal future. The defender is open to staying at the Emirates if he receives assurances over his role and playing time next season. Everton remain keen on the England international, and their manager David Moyes views White as a key defensive target this summer. The source is Football Insider. My analysis. This situation is more delicate than it might initially appear. Ben White is not forcing a move. He is not refusing to engage with Arsenal. He is asking for clarity, which is something any professional in his position would want. The question of playing time and role is a legitimate concern for a player who has had a difficult season with injury. The Everton interest adds an external pressure to the situation because it confirms that if Arsenal cannot give White the assurances he wants, there are other clubs ready to move. For Arsenal, losing a defender of White's quality and experience would be significant, particularly as they prepare for what could be a season where they are competing in the Premier League and the Champions League simultaneously. Arteta will need to handle this conversation with clarity and conviction. Ben White, knee update, no surgery required. The confirmed medical update is this: Ben White will not require knee surgery. However, he is still set to miss England's 2026 World Cup campaign. Arsenal are hopeful that White can return in time for the club's pre-season plans. My analysis: the fact that surgery is not required is genuinely positive news. Knee surgery for a footballer can mean months of rehabilitation and significant uncertainty about the recovery timeline. Avoiding surgery keeps Ben White's return window much more manageable. The news that Arsenal are hopeful about him being available for pre-season suggests the injury, while serious enough to rule him out of the World Cup, is not considered long-term or career-affecting. For White personally, missing the World Cup will be a painful blow. For Arsenal, the focus is on having him back and fit for the new season. Both storylines are running simultaneously, and the medical picture at least offers some reassurance. Victor Gyokeres to miss Sweden warm-up matches. Here is the confirmed news. Victor Gyokeres will miss Sweden's World Cup preparation games against Norway and Greece because of his involvement in the Champions League final with Arsenal on May 30th. Sweden coach Graham Potter confirmed that Gyokeres will remain focused on the club final before linking up with the national team afterward. My analysis: this decision tells you everything about the scale of what Arsenal have achieved this season. The national team coach in Graham Potter is willingly arranging his preparations around a club fixture because that club fixture is the Champions League final. Gyokeres missing World Cup warm-up matches is not a small matter for Sweden, but Potter has recognised that prioritising the Champions League final is both fair to the player and to Arsenal. For Gyokeres himself, this is confirmation of how seriously he and everyone around him is taking the final. He is not using international duty as a way to manage minutes or take a break. He is fully committed to giving Arsenal everything in Munich. That level of focus and commitment is what you want from your striker ahead of the biggest match of the season. Arsenal monitoring Jacob Ramon from Como. The reported information is this: Arsenal are reportedly monitoring 21-year-old centre-back Jacopo Ramon, who currently plays for Como 1907 in Italy. The Italian side believe he is valued between 45 million and 50 million euros. Ramon is described as a composed, technically strong defender with significant long-term potential, a profile that fits Arsenal's current recruitment strategy under Mikel Arteta. My analysis: the Ben White situation clearly has a direct connection to why this name is appearing now. Arsenal are looking at their defensive options for the future, and Ramon represents the kind of profile they have consistently targeted. Young, technically capable, with room to develop further under Arteta's coaching methods. The 45 to 50 million euro valuation is in the range that Arsenal have paid for centre-backs before. This is a rumour at this stage, with Arsenal described as monitoring rather than actively bidding. But the profile fits the pattern of Arsenal's recruitment perfectly, and it is a story that could develop significantly over the coming weeks. PSG preparing specifically for Arsenal's set pieces. The confirmed detail here is significant. Leaked training footage from Paris Saint-Germain shows their goalkeepers using rugby-style crash pads and physical drills specifically designed to deal with crosses and corners ahead of the Champions League final. My analysis: this is a direct response to Arsenal's identity as a team. Arsenal under Arteta have developed one of the most dangerous set-piece operations in European football. Goals from corners, free kicks and delivery into the box have been a consistent source of threat throughout this season. The fact that PSG are using crash pads and physical contact drills in goalkeeper training tells you that Luis Enrique's staff have identified set pieces as a primary area of vulnerability. They are not leaving this to chance. They are building specific physical resilience into their goalkeeping preparation. For Arsenal, this is a signal that PSG will be extremely well organised around dead ball situations. It does not mean Arsenal cannot score from set pieces in the final, but it does mean Arteta and his coaching staff will need to think about variations, new angles, and elements that PSG have not yet seen. Declan Rice speaks on Arsenal's title mentality. Here is exactly what Declan Rice said. He stated, "When we lost to Manchester City, a lot of people thought the title race was over. But honestly, for me, it felt like the beginning of something." He also said, "I never lost belief that we could win the league. I spoke with the players and the belief inside the dressing room stayed strong. And finally, we have kept fighting, stayed together, and now we feel we are very close. Hopefully, in the next 2 matches, we can officially become champions." My analysis. Declan Rice has become one of the most important voices in this Arsenal dressing room, and these comments confirm exactly why. When results go against a team and the outside world begins to write them off, the internal narrative inside the training ground can either collapse or hold firm. Rice is telling us clearly that it held firm. He identifies the loss to Manchester City not as a breaking point, but as a turning point in mindset. That kind of psychological resilience is not something you can simply coach in a training session. It has to come from the character of the group. The fact that Rice personally spoke to his teammates to reinforce belief during a difficult moment is the mark of a genuine leader. With 2 matches remaining and a Champions League final on the horizon, that belief is going to be tested once more. But Rice is telling us the foundation is there. Mikel's Luis Skelly now fully committed to Arsenal. The confirmed update is this. Just weeks ago, 19-year-old Miles Lewis Skelly was reportedly frustrated over limited playing time and had even been discussed with other Premier League clubs during contract negotiations. But everything has changed following his impressive performances in midfield during Arsenal's title run-in. Arsenal now view Luis Skelly as an important part of Mikel Arteta's long-term plans, with his recent breakthrough completely shifting the situation. My analysis: this is one of the most genuinely positive stories of Arsenal's season. When you look at it closely, a teenager who was on the verge of leaving the club, who was being discussed with rival Premier League teams, has turned the situation around entirely through performance, not through words, not through agent activity, through what he produced on the pitch when he was given his opportunity. That is the ideal outcome in any academy development story. It also tells you something about Arteta's management approach. He gave the young player a chance when it mattered most, in a title run-in with everything at stake, and Luis Skelly responded. That trust going both ways is now the foundation of a long-term relationship between player and club. At 19 years old, with this kind of experience already in his career, the trajectory for Luis Skelly looks very promising. Referees confirmed for key title race fixtures. The confirmed appointments are as follows. Paul Tierney will referee Arsenal versus Burnley. Stuart Atwell takes charge of Manchester City versus Crystal Palace. Anthony Taylor will oversee AFC Bournemouth versus Manchester City. This comes after recent VAR and refereeing controversy surrounding Arsenal versus West Ham and City versus Brentford, with scrutiny on officials expected to be at its highest as the title race enters its decisive stage. My analysis: referee appointments in the final weeks of a title race always attract attention, and this season has been no different. The mention of recent VAR controversy involving both Arsenal and Manchester City means that every decision in the remaining fixtures will be examined in extraordinary detail. For Arsenal supporters, the appointment of Paul Tierney for the Burnley fixture is a name that will register. For neutral observers, the appointments across all of City's remaining games are equally important. What this moment demonstrates above all else is that the Premier League's final 2 match weeks are operating under the most intense possible scrutiny. Every decision now carries the weight of a potential title outcome. Both Arsenal and Manchester City are aware of this, and the officials carrying out these appointments know their work will be analysed frame by frame. Luis Enrique and the Champions League final preparation. Now let us go deeper on the Luis Enrique situation, because there is more to this story than the headline suggests. The situation surrounding Paris Saint-Germain's preparation for the Champions League final is one that reveals a great deal about the quality of opposition Arsenal are facing on May 30th. It is now clear that Luis Enrique's decision to skip a personal award ceremony was not casual or accidental. It was deliberate, and he made sure the world knew about it. He has been publicly complimentary about Arsenal on multiple occasions, calling them an unbelievable team and stating that Arteta fully deserves his place in the final. But that admiration does not translate into complacency. The evidence suggests the opposite. Training footage has confirmed that PSG's goalkeepers are being put through physical contact drills with crash pads to prepare specifically for Arsenal's set-piece delivery. That is not a general pre-final training routine. That is a targeted response to a specific threat that Enrique's coaching staff have identified as a genuine danger. Arsenal's reputation for set-piece goals is well established throughout Europe, and PSG are taking it seriously enough to design specific physical training sessions around it. There are also practical advantages working in Paris Saint-Germain's favour heading into this final. The reality for the club is that their League One title is effectively already secured. Enrique himself described a 99.9% chance they are already champions, holding a 6-point lead with superior goal difference and 2 games remaining. That level of certainty in their domestic competition means Enrique can carefully manage his key players in the final league fixtures. Achraf Hakimi and Warren Zaïre-Emery are both carrying minor issues and both have the luxury of being protected before the final. The contrast with Arsenal's situation is stark. Arteta cannot afford to rotate or rest key players while the Premier League title race remains this close. Every fixture between now and the final has to be treated as a must-win situation. That physical and mental load accumulating across the squad is a genuine consideration as both clubs count down to Munich. The relationship between Enrique and Arteta adds an interesting human dimension to this final. They were teammates in their younger years and there is described as genuine admiration between them as people and as coaches. But the evidence is clear that personal warmth will mean nothing once the final begins. Enrique has already shown through his public statements and his training preparations that he intends to arrive in Munich completely ready. The question is whether Arsenal's preparation, complicated by a live title race and injury concerns, will be equally thorough when the moment arrives. Julian Alvarez and the summer transfer picture. The Julian Alvarez situation is one of the most layered transfer stories involving Arsenal this summer, and the details deserve careful examination. The reality for the situation is this. Spanish football expert Guillem Ballack, speaking on a major broadcast platform, confirmed that Julian Alvarez sits at the very top of Barcelona's transfer priority list for the upcoming summer. Their need for a striker is urgent because Robert Lewandowski is leaving the club. Barcelona want Alvarez not simply as a goal scorer, but as a player who can contribute across multiple dimensions. Someone with the mentality and the movement to be more than just a traditional centre-forward. The 26-year-old Atletico Madrid striker put himself in the shop window during this season's Champions League, helping fire Atletico to the semi-finals before they were eliminated by Arsenal across 2 legs. His performances in those matches gave Arsenal's players and staff a direct look at his quality. The situation is now that his long-term future at Atletico Madrid is uncertain. Just 2 seasons after joining from Manchester City, Arsenal's interest is real. Their sporting director, Andrea Berta, is described as being directly involved in any potential pursuit, and his personal history with Alvarez, having orchestrated the original move from City to Atletico in 2024, gives the club a genuine advantage in terms of relationship and knowledge of the player. But Barcelona represent a formidable rival for this signature, and Alvarez's own preference is reported to be remaining in Spain, which hands the Catalan club a natural geographical advantage. The financial picture is also demanding. Atletico could ask for as much as £100 million, which would make this one of the most expensive signings in Arsenal's history. The evidence suggests that this will only happen if there is movement elsewhere in Arsenal's attacking department. Gabriel Jesus is expected to leave the club, but even with that departure freeing up a position and wages, the coexistence of Alvarez and Victor Gyokeres at Arsenal raises questions about where Kai Havertz would fit, particularly given Havertz's injury-affected season this year. What is important to note clearly is that Gyokeres himself has had an outstanding debut season at Arsenal. 21 goals across all competitions makes him the first Arsenal player to reach that total in a debut season since Alexis Sanchez. His recent performances against Fulham and Atletico have answered many of the doubters who questioned whether he had the quality to lead the line at the highest level. Selling Gyokeres to accommodate Alvarez would therefore require a very clear strategic rationale. Is Alvarez a better fit for how Arteta wants to play? Is the profile different enough to justify the upheaval? These are the questions that will shape Arsenal's summer decisions. The Alvarez story is a genuine transfer rumour backed by credible reporting, but it is still a rumour. No bid has been confirmed, no personal terms have been agreed. And with Barcelona firmly in the race and the player's own preference pointing towards Spain, Arsenal face a significant challenge to make this happen, even if they choose to pursue it seriously. What today's collection of stories tells us is that Arsenal Football Club is operating at a level of intensity and attention that very few clubs in England have experienced at the same time. A Premier League title race with 2 matches remaining, a Champions League final preparation running parallel to that domestic battle, a summer transfer window that is already generating real activity with genuine targets across multiple positions. Contract situations, injury updates, and young players making their marks at exactly the right moment. This is a club in motion. Everything is happening at once. And Mikel Arteta is managing all of it, while his opposite number in the Champions League final sits at home, free from domestic pressure, studying footage and designing training drills specifically to stop what Arsenal do best. The next 2 weeks are going to define a generation of Arsenal supporters' memories. Whether or not the league title arrives before Munich and whether or not the Champions League trophy is lifted on May 30th, the level that this club is now operating at is something genuinely historic. Stay with this channel for every single update as it happens. Subscribe if you have not already. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Come on, Arsenal.